Hey guys, welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Resolve. In the last part, we actually started the trial of this case. And it's really weird what's going on. If you've seen it, to summarize things, there was this experiment by Mr. Hairbrain, Professor Hairbrain, and he's supposed to have beamed someone. And that person died, but not from the fall because his calculations were wrong, but because he was stabbed. And that's very weird. So since that's very weird, we are going to... Well, we are not going to do anything first because I just realized that we have something new in the court record, which is the screwdriver. And we are going to examine that screwdriver, of course, because we want to be thorough, and this might be a crucial clue. So let's have a look at the top. This is blood, Mr. Asmund's, no doubt. This is the problem with looking at murder weapons. Okay. So the handle is very weird too. I've seen this unusually shaped handle before. It's the same screwdriver that was lodged in the grill on the floor on the Kinesis machine, which could be important information, so I should definitely make a note of it. The details of the screwdriver have been updated in the court record. A metal screwdriver that was found poking through the grill in the base of what remains of the Kinesis machine. It has a very distinctive handle. Is there anything else about it? I suppose not. So the handle is what's going down here. Alright, so we had the cross-examination already. Fatal wound. Clearly been stabbed by something sharp right in the heart. The weapon must have been left in his body whilst he was beamed through the air. But wait a second. It has a very distinctive handle, blah blah blah, was found poking through the grill in the base of the remains of the Kinesis machine, so this seems to be the thing to present here.
Objection!
We were right. Cool. You say that while the weapon remains in the body, there's very little bleeding. Is that unequivocal? Look, there was no blood on the experimentation stage, even though that's where the fellow was stabbed. The only explanation for that is if the screwdriver was still in his body, stopping any heavy bleeding.
It's common medical knowledge, my learned friend, even on your side of the world.
Yes, but about the screwdriver. The thing is, we actually saw it at the same results on the experimentation stage.
What?
It was on the floor by the wreckage of the machine poking through a metal grill. I went to pick it up, but the detective here stopped me. Isn't that right, Inspector Gregson?
Now you come to mention it, yes.
Inspector, are we to understand that you permitted the defense counsel to investigate? That you contravened the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act?
No, not at all. I wouldn't do that. I just let him look, nothing more. It was clear that he wasn't to touch anything.
Yes, that's true. This screwdriver was in plain sight on the stage. But it shouldn't have been, should it?
What are you getting at?
If this tool had still been in the victim's body when the victim was beamed away by the machine, then it shouldn't have still been on the stage. That's right. It should have been beamed across to this crystal tower along with Mr. Asmund, and been found still lodged in the victim's chest.
Yeah.
Order, order. How do you explain this, Inspector?
I don't...
It looks as though everything that the victim had on his person moved with him when he was beamed. If the screwdriver was still in his chest when the instantaneous kinesis occurred, obviously that should have been beamed to the destination as well. This is a strange situation. Even though people are saying that this instantaneous kinesis is a scientific impossibility, We're still basing our arguments on the assumption that it did actually take place. Alright, time to tighten the screws here. My lord, if the prosecution is unable to explain this inconsistency in its argument, we can only conclude that the testimony given in support cannot be relied upon. Lord von Zieks is stunned. Oh no! No! Professor, don't! Do you have something to say, witness?
Yes, I knew it. It bears out. The equations hold. Mr. Naruto, don't worry.
About what?
Without delving into the details, there is no inconsistency.
What?
Even if Andrew had been lodged in Mr. Asmon's chest, my trusty tool wouldn't have moved. Andrew remaining on the stretch is consistent with my calculations.
What?
What?
It would seem your illusions have been shattered. Clearly we should hear the accused's explanation. Or should I say, this brilliant scientist's explanation?
Just when I'd found an inconsistency in the prosecution's argument. Scientists. Very well, the defendant will testify again. Provide us with a scientific explanation as to why the inconsistency asserted by the defense fails to hold.
In the name of Apollo, I will, my lord.
Hairbrain, why? Why? The inconsistency explained.
To be clear, I'm still at the stage of gathering data in my research. My hypothesis states the kinesis cannot transport metal, though. Hence, the metal weapon would have stayed put. In other words, the point just raised by Mr. Naruto isn't any inconsistency at all. Mr. Asmon was the patron of my research. Without him, my work wouldn't have been possible. Now I have a duty to protect the incredible machine that we built together.
So, the thrust of your testimony, Professor, is
that based upon his hypothesis, metal objects cannot be moved by this method of instantaneous kinesis.
in other words,
since the screwdriver is made of metal, even if it remained lodged in the victim's chest, its subsequent discovery on the stage despite the victim being found elsewhere is not an inconsistency.
and therefore,
Professor Albert Hairbrain could still have been the killer.
My great hypothesis holds, you see. We had to make the cage used to contain the subject from wood for that reason.
I wasn't addressing you, witness.
Professor Hairbrain? Yes?
Whose side are you on here?
I don't take sides, Mr. Naruto. No. My only interest lies in upholding my hypothesis. I'm a scientist after all.
Is he working for us or against us? It's very hard to tell.
Let's see how you cross-examine this testimony, my Nipponese friend.
Yes, fire away, Mr. Naruto.
Sorry, guys. More. Alright. Cross-examination. The inconsistency explained.
To be clear, I'm still at the stage of gathering data in my
I clicked because, okay. Okay, so let's go back and press.
Hold it!
And yet your retort to my argument wasn't lacking confidence in any way.
No scientist can find the truth without first finding self-belief. Those were the words of a certain scientist I hold in the very highest esteem.
But you realize that disproving my argument puts you in a very precarious position, don't you?
No scientist should strive to protect himself more than he strives to protect the truth. More words of the same great scientist, you know.
words that are causing me a lot of trouble. Who is this scientist?
I'm afraid I couldn't tell you, Mr. Naruhodo. But as soon as I remember the magnificent genius' name, you'll be the first to know.
It might be worth keeping the names of your idols to mind.
You're wasting your breath, my learned friend. The scatterbrain even forgets my name at times.
So Lord Von Zieks really did have a friend once, but I didn't notice hell freezing over.
My hypothesis states the kinesis cannot transport metal, though, hence the metal weapon would have stayed put.
Hold it! Your hypothesis states it, so this isn't proven then.
No, of course not. It's merely a hypothesis, but a good one, based upon thousands of calculations. But it is widely known that metals can't be decomposed by electrolysis.
Okay, sorry.
Yes, of course, so I am right. My hypothesis is clearly correct.
What is it about incriminating himself that makes this man so happy?
It's the whole reason that the birdcage is made of wood, you see.
Sorry, the birdcage?
Yes, that's what I call the key obtusa cage in which Mr. Asman was placed for the kinesis. The jail cell in which the victim was detained. It does indeed seem to be made of a timber of some sort.
I think you're not to refer to it as an instrument of incarceration, your lordship.
In short, any weapon lodged in the victim when he was beamed away by instantaneous kinesis would have been left behind on the stage if it was made of metal, correct?
Yes, that's it. Yes. It all fits perfectly with the mathematical model.
But the ultimate conclusion then is that the defendant alone had the opportunity to inflict this fatal injury on the victim, is it not?
Oh,
Indeed, sir. Someone beam me out of this nightmare.
in other words, the point just raised by Mr. Naruto is an inconsistency at all.
Hold it! You seem to be pleased by that.
Yes, another example of my hypothesis holding true. But I sense some sarcasm, Mr. Naruhodo. Are you not pleased?
No.
I knew it. At the end of the day, I'm the one responsible for Mr. Asman losing his life. The advancement of science is no excuse. I know that.
No, you're quite right. Tell the court, did you have a close relationship with Mr. Asman?
Oh, well, no, not really. I mean, I'd only met him 2 or 3 times. And we only ever discussed my hypothesis and the project, and the research grant, of course. Mr. Asman was a patron of my research. Without him, my work wouldn't have been possible.
Hold it! How did you come to know Mr. Asman in the first place?
A year ago now, a small provincial science journal published a little paper about my work.
That's a scientific journal? Good gracious, I should need new spectacles.
It might have had an extraordinary hypothesis and great promise, but at the time, I had no money. I had to eat tiny little meals at a tiny little cafe and drink watered down water out of a tiny little glass. But Mr. Asman read the paper and came to visit me at my tiny little laboratory.
And offered you money to help you fund your work?
Exactly, that's exactly what happened. I handled the theoretical side of things and Mr. Asman provided me with an engineer for the practical. And the 3 of us produced that fantastic machine together.
The machine that you brought to the great exhibition to demonstrate.
We had to apply to the government for some sort of inspection to be allowed to exhibit it, I think. I didn't understand all the side of things. Mr. Asman took care of all it. He was a wonderful man. Really, I owe him everything. Now I have a duty to protect the incredible machine that we built together.
Hold it! When you say that you built the machine together, does that mean that you were involved in its construction?
Yes. Well, not exactly. I'm not good with the practical side of machines myself, so the physical construction was done by an engineer.
Little remains of your creation now, though, following the explosion. Repair will no doubt be impossible.
Yes, I realize that. But still, if someone were to gather all the broken parts, they could discover the secret of my hypothesis. But Mr. Hasman and I toiled over the machine for so long. We put our hearts and souls into it. I have to protect our work. So what's left of the machine must be kept safe. That's only fair because what happened was an accident.
That's the extent of the testimony then. Thank goodness for that. I don't want him to do any more damage. He's already basically proven that he could have been the culprit. But it seems as though all he really cares about is defending his hypothesis. Still, I wonder, what if his hypothesis is just fundamentally flawed? And I think it actually is, guys, because here, if we press here, I'm just gonna skip across all of this because we already heard that. There we go. Because as you can see here, there's this picture and he's wearing glasses and they're partially made of metal. And there are buttons and stuff, although the buttons aren't that... but the glasses are what bother me. So I'm assuming that we are supposed to... Just raised by Mr. Isn't any an inconsistency at all. So I'm really wondering, guys, is this what... I mean... Is there something else we could... Isn't any inconsistency at all? Mr. Asman was the patron of my research. I don't think that these statements can be presented with anything. It's either this statement or this one. Cannot transport metal though. So I'm just gonna present the photograph of the victim here. Professor Harebrained, you say that according to your hypothesis, nothing made of metal can be beamed by instantaneous kinesis using the machine you made. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Spot on. Exactly correct.
In that case, I'd ask you to have a look at this photograph that was taken at the scene. In particular, I'd like you to pay attention to the victim's face. You can clearly see that Mr. Asman is wearing a pair of spectacles with a metal rim.
What? Metal? No! Metal can't. That's not... metal? No!
We've already established that the proposed murder weapon, the screwdriver, was found on the stage. However, if your hypothesis correctly predicted that outcome, it should also have predicted that the metal-rimmed spectacles would be found on the same place.
Ah! My hypothesis! My hypothesis!
Professor Harebrained, this isn't easy for me to say, but your hypothesis is clearly flawed.
Ah!
Order, order, order! Counsel, what is the implication of this?
If on the day in question, the alleged instantaneous kinesis never actually took place, then it's entirely possible that the victim was killed somewhere other than on the stage. And in that case, someone other than the defendant could have been the culprit.
But my hypothesis is sound! I proved it that day. The experiment was a success. The experiment was proof of all my work.
If I could say something here, my capacity as a fellow of the Royal Society. Yes, juror number 4, go ahead. As a man of science, there's one thing I simply cannot abide. And that's a fraud who pretends to be a fellow man of science.
What? Wait, Great Scott! Are you suggesting my science is suspect?
It's just been disproved, hasn't it? In front of us all. In other words, the whole demonstration was a complete nonsense from start to finish. Believe me, my fellow jurors, when I tell you that this man is here, a bounder and a fraud. I say the records of the machine should be stripped down and thoroughly examined.
Sorry, guys.
No, never! That machine is the essence of my entire hypothesis!
Oh, sorry, I had to sneeze. I mean, you just heard, sorry.
It's protected by the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act!
What the devil is the Blasted Act all about, huh? Who made up such a draft rule?
I don't like the way this seems to be going. What's the best way for me to help the professor? We're not gonna wait and see. Objection! Sorry. Professor Hairbrain has yet to perfect his invention. That would seem to be the case, yes. But even so...
Even so, what?
Going to such trouble and expense to create a fake machine to display in public. He would have absolutely no reason to do such a thing.
Objection!
He had an obvious reason to do exactly that. For the research grant money.
If the government was foolish enough to have deemed the man's ridiculous notion plausible, he and his conspirators would have received a handsome sum indeed.
Conspirators? What be the reward? Value of such a grant? £10?
You're an order of magnitude out, madam. £500 a year!
Oh, wow! I could live handsome on the of that much money for years.
The society's noticed an increase in bogus public demonstrations in the field of science recently, and plenty of scientists arguing with each other to get the largest slice of the funding cake. People's greed is plenty motive enough for murder, I assure you.
No, I haven't deceived anyone, least of all the government. My hypothesis is sound, the science is sound, please, you must believe me.
Objection!
No matter how unbelievable this hypothesis may seem to you, ladies and gentlemen, the fact remains that the victim was transported instantly to the Crystal Tower, which means that the experiment was a success.
Barak!
And therefore, the only person who could possibly have committed this murder is the accused.
Barak.
Where's this heading? I have no idea.
My lord, if I may.
Yes, Lord Von Zieks.
The prosecution would like to summon new witnesses to the stand.
New witnesses? What would that be? What would be the nature of their involvement?
They were spectators of the demonstration at the exhibition, who were occupying special seats.
Eyewitnesses? Very well, the court grants the prosecution's request. I should very much like to hear from eyewitnesses to the incident.
The prosecution's stance is clear. This experiment was no postage. The accused killed the financier victim there on the public stage before the very eyes of the spectator. Now, my learned friend.
Oh, yes?
It's time for you to make your own stance clear.
There's clearly a flaw in the professor's hypothesis. I can definitely see that. But where does that leave me? We shall take a short recess now, during which time the prosecution will prepare its new witnesses to take the stand.
As you wish, my lord.
Good. In that case, court is adjourned for 20 minutes. Interesting. And we are about to save the game and start the second part of the trial. So, we are going to do that in the new episode of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Resolve, guys. So, tune in next time.
See you there.